Today we are going to discuss a couple of things that happened this week that for me I think they really exemplify how problematic it is to say that fashion is not political, fashion and art can exist in a world of their own, they are just about aesthetics and nothing more. So I don't agree with that statement, and I don't know, I might be wrong, but in any case we are going to talk about this news together and let's discuss. First piece of news of the day is that the wedding of Jeff Bezos, the Amazon owner, and his wife, Lauren Sanchez, has appeared in the digital cover of Vogue. Vogue, the fashion magazine. A fashion magazine who decided to put on its cover the wedding of a couple completely unrelated to the world of fashion. And not only the cover itself, but like in the June issue of Vogue, there is a whole series of articles talking about every detail of the wedding, including a very long piece in which they follow the final fitting of the dress, the wedding dress, obviously, and they have a whole photo shoot and explaining the whole inspiration behind the dress that was designed by Dolce & Gabbana and apparently was inspired by the dress that Sofía Loren wore when she married Cary Grant in a movie. But for me, the thing that stuck with me from that interview, it was an anecdote that happened while they were doing the photo shoot. They were doing the photo shoot on a rural area, on a mansion, and they had a moment of panic. At some moment, there was a man who passed along the property line, and everyone was very worried because maybe he was wearing a GoPro and was filming the whole thing, the whole very secret wedding dress photo shoot thing. But no, it turned out that it was a maize farmer that just went about his job. And like, it's so surreal that they were all panicking because this man who was going to his job, a job that would probably earn him in a year what this person earns in like 5 minutes, the very presence of this man was an issue for this perfect day. Like, I don't know if they were able to see the irony of all these people being super rich and trying a dress that costs around $300,000 according to some media outlets, and they all panicked when this person, this outsider, passed by. And this is recounted in the article as a funny anecdote instead of like the most flagrant example of the class divide and how these people live in a completely different world. But anyway, the point of this wedding being on the cover of Vogue is not about this poor man. It's not also about this dress. It's about the whole thing about the wedding. So it was, according to Lauren, it was a very intimate wedding of just 250 people. I don't think I have ever met 250 people in my whole life. And I'm very sure I wouldn't like them enough to invite them to my wedding. But apparently Lauren and Jeff Bezos are so nice that they have 250 close friends to invite to their very intimate wedding. The wedding that is celebrated in Venice in some festivities that lasted for 4 full days, in which they basically rented parts of Venice and closed them to the people who were visiting the city and also to the people who actually live in the city, because Venice, it's not just the backdrop for very rich weddings, it's also a city where normal people live, and they saw their lives disrupted by this whole party, so they protested. There were a lot of people protesting in Venice because of the whole thing, and also a lot of those wedding guests arrived in their own private jets. Exactly 95 private jets. 95. Let's think about that. Like 95 private planes, each one of them taking probably 1 or 2 guests at a time. And we are all worried about, should I recycle my plastic water bottle or maybe I can reuse it again one more time? everything seems pointless at this point. Like, we seem to be living in separate realities, in parallel realities that don't touch, that don't even live in the same planet, because for us, the planet is dying and we are trying to do our best and recycle and buy secondhand and all those things, while there's people who apparently they must not live in the same planet because they don't have second thoughts on taking a private jet to go to the wedding. So this is the situation about the wedding, and this is the wedding that Vogue chose to highlight in its cover. In a cover that doesn't have any kind of relationship to the fashion world, and it doesn't have any kind of artistic value. Like, it's not a super striking picture taken by a world famous photographer or anything like that. Like, Vogue used to be a pinnacle of good taste, not only for the fashion world, but also for culture and for art. But this is what they chose to cover in the June issue of Vogue. And if that isn't a political move, I don't know what is. They are not highlighting anything about the fashion of this event. They are just presenting it as the new ideal, I guess. They devoted pages and pages to cover the most insubstantial detail of this wedding, of the wedding of a man who has a multi-million-dollar company but only pays around 1.1% of real tax rate, for example. So this is what one of the most, or even the most prestigious fashion magazine decides to highlight. It's so out of place that there are even rumors that Bezos is going to buy, or it has already bought, Vogue as a gift to his new bride. I wouldn't be surprised at this point. Like, we have just seen that money indeed can buy pretty much anything. So Vogue, with showing this, with condoning this, it's making a statement. It's making a political statement. It's saying fuck you to the whole sustainability and conscious consumerist movement, and instead is legitimizing the Amazon model, a model that is pretty much capitalism at its best. It's a model built on worker exploitation, on overconsumption, and in the fallacy of endless growth. Featuring all that on the cover has absolutely nothing to do with fashion, but everything to do with politics. Now let's take a look at something that is considerably more pleasant from an aesthetic point of view. So, the designer Simon Jacquemus from the brand Jacquemus has presented his Spring-Summer 26 fashion show, and he has called it Le Paysan, which, sorry for my absence of French, but it means the peasant in English. So he said that it was inspired by his own heritage, by the history of his family as peasants, as farmers in the south of France, in the region of Provence. So he said that he wanted to pay an homage to all that culture of simple living, of being in contact with nature and with the seasons and all that. And from an aesthetic point of view, I absolutely love it. Like, I would wear anything from that. Well, almost anything. All those super full skirts, they are so, so beautiful. The way they move and the whole silhouette. I think it's a gorgeous collection. However, Jacquemus has been accused of cosplaying poverty. I saw this on Instagram on a post by Anchor Magazine, and also on a post by Twinbread, and they both raised the question of how sincere is that homage if the only thing that you do is take the looks and translate them into a full glamorous fashion show, but you are not actually supporting the people that you are supposed to be honoring with your collection. Because apparently this region of France, the peasants, the farmers, the people who live there are very impoverished. They have been having very hard working and living conditions for years because of the economy. So all these good intentions about honoring that and the family history and all that, that is not paired with action, with actual action, like, for example, donating a percentage of the profits to these farmers, or doing some kind of initiative to help them, or collaborating with some organizations that are already there, something like that, something where you put your money where your mouth is. If you're not doing any of that, what use it is that you create a very romantic and very beautiful collection inspired by them? It's actually not doing anything good, but rather removing something from their identity and using it for your own benefit. And the argument for that is even more compelling because the whole collection was presented in a fashion show organized in the Orangerie at Versailles. So you're presenting the clothes of peasants in one of the biggest symbols of royalty, of money, of power, of higher social class. And also these clothes that you're presenting, they cost hundreds and hundreds of euros. So there is no way that one of those peasants would buy a look created by Jacquemus. So there is a moral dilemma. And it's not the first time that some big fashion brand or like some fancy designer has used garments that come from a very humble origin and has appropriated them. For example, like we have seen in brands like Balenciaga, that they regularly, more or less, come up with some like torn jeans or ragged t-shirt or some kind of garment that it seems to be at the very end of its existence, but they sell it as new because it's actually new. It's a new garment that they have distressed, and they sell it for like exorbitant amounts of money. So it's like a cultural appropriation, but instead with class, with social class instead of culture. So these kind of inspirations, even the ones that have good intentions, like apparently the one by Jacquemus, for me, they come out as insincere because by trying to erase that class divide, they make it as painfully obvious as possible. And in this case, we even have another layer to add to this because the designer posted on Instagram prior to releasing the full collection. He posted a series of pictures in which he presented together an old picture, an original picture of like 30, 50 years ago with the actual poor people, the actual peasants. And Jacquemus presented that side by side with the new version of that, with the looks he had created for the collection and with the models he had decided to use for that photo shoot, everything in a very like glamorized version of that reality. So these pictures can be seen as an homage, but also can be seen as trying to romanticize poverty, and by doing that, erasing the reality. He is kind of replacing all that poor, ugly people and making them more palatable by using nice-looking models with all these fashion outfits, conveying a message that is more or less along the lines that poverty or simple living, however you want to call it, is only acceptable when it's good-looking, when it's beautified. And the people who have accused him of being performative, of not actually doing anything to help these people, have pointed out that he actually refused to acknowledge that naming the whole collection The Peasant has a political meaning. Like, he said that he didn't have any political intentions. But with this, he is, willingly or not, failing to see the obvious, that fashion doesn't exist in a vacuum and clothes carry a whole range of symbolism and meaning, and we as a society have constructed all that visual grammar in fashion in a way that is inherently political. In the past, for example, certain clothes or certain colors could only be worn by royalty, or by the noble classes, but now we don't have those kind of laws that state that class divide, but we still have that in a way with certain visual patterns and also certain brands and price points. And Jacquemus must know that peasant, the word peasant, has in itself political connotations because it used to define a social class. We are engaging constantly with all those social norms and implied meanings, so we cannot pretend when it doesn't suit us that we are alien from them. And also, why should we? Why should we keep ourselves apart from all that context? Because if we only worried about ourselves, our little corner of experience, what a sad life that would be. We would be taking a very stupid position, or rather a very idiotic position in the etymological sense of the word. Because idiot comes from the ancient Greek word idiotes, which more or less means a person who is not engaged in public affairs, a person who is only worried about himself. So let's open up this debate. Do you think that you can keep yourself out of what is happening politically? Do you think that fashion and art can exist outside of the political context? Or maybe even, were you invited to Bezos' wedding? Did you arrive on a private jet? Let me know. Well, don't let me know if you were invited to Bezos' wedding. I don't want to know, but I do want to know what's your opinion about the rest. So if you like this style of video of me rambling about recent news, I do have several others similar to this. I'm going to recommend you this one, in which I get to talk about two of my favorite topics in the whole world. One is criticizing AI and the other is witches. So have a lovely rest of your day and see you soon in the next video.